What would you give up to find your child again? What if the person who abandoned you 20 years ago suddenly appeared at your doorstep? And when the walls we build around our hearts become too high, can love still find a way through? Miguel Rodriguez stares at his reflection in the cracked mirror of a gas station bathroom somewhere in Nebraska. The lines around his eyes tell stories of sleepless nights, each wrinkle a memory of his son's laughter that he can barely remember anymore. His calloused hands shake as he splashes cold water on his weathered face. Today marks exactly 20 years since he last held Daniel in his arms. The memory burns like acid in his chest. Daniel was only 8 years old, clutching his favorite toy dinosaur, when the immigration officers knocked down their apartment door. Miguel had 30 seconds to kiss his son goodbye before they dragged him away in handcuffs. 30 seconds to promise a little boy that Daddy would come back soon. But soon became months, then years, then a lifetime of searching. Miguel pulls out a crumpled photograph from his wallet. The edges are worn smooth from his fingers, tracing Daniel's smile over and over again. In the picture, his son is missing 2 front teeth, grinning at the camera with chocolate cake smeared on his cheek from his 8th birthday party. It was the last birthday Miguel ever celebrated with him. The deportation was swift and merciless. One moment Miguel was working 2 jobs to support his family. The next he was on a plane back to El Salvador with nothing but the clothes on his back. His wife Maria had promised to bring Daniel to visit once she saved enough money. But the letters stopped coming after 6 months. The phone number changed. Then silence. 20 years of deafening, suffocating silence. Miguel spent his first 5 years back in El Salvador, fighting every legal battle he could imagine. He sold everything he owned to pay lawyers who made promises they couldn't keep. He haunted the American embassy, begging consulates to help him find his family. Every door slammed shut in his face. Every hope crumbled to dust between his desperate fingers. But Miguel never stopped looking. When the internet finally reached his small village, he spent countless hours scrolling through social media, searching for any trace of his son. He learned to use search engines, created fake profiles, joined missing person groups. He memorized the faces of thousands of young men, hoping to recognize the boy he once knew in their features. 6 months ago, everything changed. A private investigator in Houston called with news that made Miguel's heart stop beating for 3 full seconds. Daniel was alive. He was 28 years old, married and working as a construction foreman in Denver, Colorado. The same profession Miguel had taught him to love when Daniel was just a toddler, helping Daddy fix broken things around their old apartment. But there was more. Daniel had spent years believing his father had abandoned him. Maria, overwhelmed and bitter after the deportation, had told their son that Miguel chose to leave, that he didn't want the responsibility of being a father, that he had started a new family in El Salvador and forgotten about them completely. Every lie was a dagger through Miguel's soul when he heard the truth. The private investigator handed over an address, a phone number, and a warning. "He's angry," the man said quietly. 20 years of anger doesn't disappear overnight. You need to be prepared for rejection. You need to be prepared for him to slam the door in your face. Miguel bought a bus ticket that same afternoon. He didn't pack much because he didn't own much, just some clothes, the photograph, and a small wooden box containing every letter he had written to Daniel over the years but never sent. Letters explaining the truth. Letters begging for forgiveness. Letters overflowing with a father's love that never died. The bus ride from Houston to Denver takes 18 hours. Miguel doesn't sleep. He stares out the window at the American landscape he once called home, wondering if his son will recognize him, wondering if Daniel's eyes still crinkle the same way when he smiles, wondering if he even smiles at all anymore. At a rest stop in Oklahoma, Miguel calls his sister Elena. She's the only family member who never stopped believing he would find Daniel someday. Her voice cracks with emotion when he tells her where he's going. "What if he hates me, Elena?" Miguel whispers into the phone, his voice breaking like a teenage boy's. "What if I've lost him forever?" "Mijo," Elena says softly, using the nickname she's called him since childhood. "A father's love doesn't have an expiration date, and neither does a son's need for his papa. You go find your boy. You go bring him home to your heart where he belongs." The bus pulls into Denver at sunrise on a Tuesday morning. Miguel has memorized Daniel's address so completely he could recite it in his sleep. 1247 Maple Street, Unit 3B. A modest apartment complex in a working-class neighborhood that reminds Miguel of the place where he and Maria first lived when they came to America full of dreams. Miguel walks the streets for hours before finding the courage to approach Daniel's building. His legs feel like they're made of concrete. His heart pounds so hard he's certain everyone can hear it echoing off the apartment walls. He rehearses what he'll say, but every word feels inadequate. How do you apologize for 20 years? How do you explain a love that never wavered despite the distance? At 6:30 p.m., Miguel watches from across the street as a tall man with broad shoulders and calloused hands climbs the steps to the apartment building. Even from 50 feet away, Miguel recognizes the walk. The way Daniel's left shoulder sits slightly higher than his right, just like Miguel's. The way he takes the stairs, 2 at a time, just like he did as a little boy racing to beat his father to the front door. Miguel's knees nearly buckle. This stranger is his son. This man who looks nothing like the 8-year-old boy in the photograph is the baby Miguel once rocked to sleep every night, the toddler who used to fall asleep on Miguel's chest while watching cartoons, the child who called him Papa in a voice sweeter than any music Miguel had ever heard. Miguel waits another hour, pacing the sidewalk like a caged animal. Neighbors start to notice the nervous man walking back and forth, checking his watch, running his hands through his graying hair. A woman, walking her dog, crosses to the other side of the street. Miguel realizes he must look dangerous, unhinged, but how else should a man look when he's about to face the most important moment of his entire life? At 7:45 p.m., Miguel finally walks up to the building. His finger hovers over the buzzer marked D. Rodriguez 3B for what feels like an eternity. Rodriguez. His son kept his last name. That has to mean something. That has to mean there's still a connection, still a thread of love that 20 years couldn't completely sever. Miguel presses the button. The intercom crackles to life, and a voice that's deeper than Miguel expected, but somehow familiar, asks, "Who is it?" Miguel's mouth goes dry. His tongue feels like sandpaper. The words he's practiced for months suddenly evaporate from his memory. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he says, "Daniel, it's your father." Silence. Long, terrible silence that seems to stretch across decades. Miguel can hear his own heartbeat through the intercom. He can hear traffic passing behind him. He can hear the sound of his own dreams, either coming true or shattering into a million pieces. Then footsteps. Heavy footsteps running downstairs. The front door of the building swings open with such force it nearly comes off its hinges, and there, standing in the doorway, is Daniel. Miguel's breath catches in his throat. His son is beautiful, tall and strong, with Maria's dark eyes and Miguel's stubborn jaw. There are scars on his hands that tell stories Miguel will never know. There are lines around his eyes that speak of laughter and pain that Miguel never got to share. This is his baby, grown into a man without him. For 10 seconds they just stare at each other. Father and son, separated by 3 feet of space and 20 years of silence. Miguel drinks in every detail of Daniel's face, memorizing this moment because he doesn't know if he'll ever get another one. Daniel's eyes fill with tears. He's clearly trying to fight back. His hands clench into fists at his sides, and Miguel can see the 8-year-old boy who used to have tantrums when he was overwhelmed. Some things never change. Some gestures are written in our DNA. "You look older," Daniel says finally, his voice thick with emotion he doesn't want to show. "You look like your mother." Miguel replies, and immediately wishes he hadn't mentioned Maria. He doesn't know if she's still alive, still in Daniel's life, still poisoning their son's mind against him. Daniel's jaw tightens. Don't talk about her. You don't get to talk about her after what you did. Miguel's heart breaks all over again, just like it has every day for 20 years. But he understands Daniel's anger. He's prepared for it. He's spent months practicing how to absorb his son's rage without fighting back, without defending himself. Because the truth is complicated, and Daniel has lived with a simple story for 2 decades. The truth won't erase 20 years of pain in one conversation. You're right, Miguel says quietly. I don't have that right. But Daniel, I need you to know that I never stopped looking for you. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day. Daniel laughs, but it's a bitter sound that cuts Miguel deeper than any scream could. Love? You call abandoning your 8-year-old son love? You call disappearing without a word love? I waited for you. I sat by that window every night for 2 years watching for your car. Mom finally had to move us to a different apartment because I wouldn't stop waiting for you. The image of his little boy sitting by a window watching for a father who couldn't come home nearly brings Miguel to his knees. He grabs the doorframe to steady himself, fighting back tears that have been building for decades. I was deported, Daniel. They took me away in handcuffs. I tried to come back. I tried everything. I sold everything I owned trying to get back to you. I never abandoned you. I was taken from you. Daniel's expression flickers. For just a moment, confusion replaces anger in his eyes. Deported? Mom said. Mom always said you left because you didn't want us anymore. She said you found someone else in El Salvador. Miguel reaches into his jacket pocket slowly, not wanting to startle his son. He pulls out the wooden box and holds it like an offering. These are letters I wrote to you. Every birthday, every Christmas, every important day for 20 years. I wrote them all to you, Daniel. I just never knew where to send them. Daniel stares at the box like it might explode. His hands shake slightly as he reaches for it, then pulls back. The war between his need to know the truth and his fear of more pain plays out across his features in real time. I don't know if I can do this, Daniel whispers, and suddenly he sounds like the scared little boy Miguel remembers. I don't know if I can handle any more lies. I don't know if I can handle the truth either. Miguel takes a small step forward. Then don't handle anything right now. Just, can I see you? Can we sit somewhere and talk? I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to love me back. I just want to look at my son for a few more minutes. I want to know who you became. I want to tell you who I never stopped being. Hey, Daniel looks at his father for a long moment, studying Miguel's face like he's trying to solve a puzzle. Finally, he steps aside and gestures for Miguel to enter the building. They climb the stairs in silence, but it's not the crushing silence of separation anymore. It's the tentative quiet of 2 strangers trying to remember how to be father and son. Daniel's apartment is small but clean. The furniture is practical, nothing fancy, but everything is organized with the precision Miguel recognizes from his own personality. There are photographs on the walls, but Miguel carefully doesn't look too closely. He doesn't know if he's ready to see 20 years of Daniel's life in snapshots that don't include him. They sit on opposite ends of a couch that's seen better days. Daniel still holds the wooden box, turning it over in his hands like it contains either salvation or destruction. Miguel waits. He's been waiting for 20 years. He can wait a few more minutes. Tell me about the deportation, Daniel says finally. Tell me what really happened. Miguel takes a deep breath and begins to speak. He tells Daniel about the dawn raid, about the 30 seconds he had to say goodbye, about the promises he couldn't keep. He talks about the years of legal battles, the corrupt lawyers, the closed doors. He describes the village in El Salvador where he learned to use computers just to search for his son online. As Miguel talks, he watches Daniel's face change. The anger doesn't disappear, but it shifts. It becomes the anger of someone who realizes they've been living with the wrong story for 20 years. It becomes the anger of someone who discovers their pain had a different source than they thought. "She told me you didn't fight for us," Daniel says quietly. "She told me you were relieved to be free of the responsibility." Miguel closes his eyes. "Your mother was in pain, Daniel. She was alone with a child in a country that felt hostile to her. She was angry, and she had every right to be angry, but not at me, at the system that ripped our family apart, at the laws that treated us like criminals for wanting a better life, at the world that made love feel impossible." Daniel opens the wooden box. The hinges creak softly, and Miguel holds his breath. Inside are dozens of letters, all addressed to "Mi querido Daniel" in Miguel's careful handwriting. Some are written on notebook paper, some on the backs of receipts, some on letterhead from the jobs Miguel worked over the years. Daniel picks up the first letter and begins to read silently. Miguel watches his son's eyes move across the words he wrote when Daniel turned 9, 10, 11. Birthday wishes sent to no address. Christmas messages delivered to empty air. Apologies and explanations and declarations of love that never reached their intended recipient. Tears start falling down Daniel's cheeks, but he doesn't stop reading. He picks up another letter, then another. 20 years of a father's love scattered across his coffee table like evidence in a trial where the verdict has already been decided by time and distance. "You wrote to me every year on my birthday," Daniel says, his voice breaking. "Every birthday, every Christmas, every first day of school I missed, every soccer game I couldn't attend, every scraped knee I couldn't kiss better. I wrote it all down, Daniel. I told you about my day, about the job I was working, about how proud I was of you even though I didn't know what you were accomplishing. I just knew you were out there becoming an amazing man because you were already an amazing little boy." Daniel looks up from the letters, and Miguel sees recognition in his son's eyes for the first time. Not the recognition of a stranger figuring out who's standing in front of him, but the deeper recognition of a child remembering his father's love. The recognition of a bond that 20 years couldn't completely destroy. "I became a construction foreman," Daniel says softly. "I build houses. I fix things that are broken." Miguel's heart swells with pride and breaks with regret at the same time. "Just like we used to do together. You remember helping me fix the kitchen cabinet in our old apartment? You were so proud when I let you hold the screwdriver." "I still have that screwdriver," Daniel admits, and both men start crying then. Not the angry tears of confrontation, but the healing tears of recognition. The tears of two people finding each other after being lost for too long. They talk until sunrise. Miguel tells Daniel about his life in El Salvador, about the construction company he eventually started there, about the children he mentored because he couldn't mentor his own son. Daniel tells Miguel about school, about Maria's death 3 years ago from cancer, about his wife Sarah, who's been encouraging him to search for his father. "She always said I had a hole in my heart shaped like you," Daniel says. "I told her the hole was shaped like abandonment, but she said it was shaped like love that never got the chance to grow up." As the sun rises over Denver, painting Daniel's apartment in golden light, Miguel realizes that his son has become exactly the man he always hoped he would be. Strong, kind, honest, hard-working. Everything good about Miguel and Maria combined and grown into something beautiful despite the pain. "I need time," Daniel says finally. 20 years doesn't disappear in one night. "I need time to process this, to figure out how to fit you back into my life. If that's what we both want." Miguel nods, understanding flooding through him like relief. "I'm not going anywhere, mijo. I've waited 20 years. I can wait as long as you need." Daniel sets down the last letter and looks at his father directly for the first time since opening the door. "I missed you," he says simply. "Even when I hated you, I missed you. Even when I tried to forget you existed, I missed you. I missed you too, Daniel. every single day, every single minute. They stand up from the couch simultaneously, and for a moment they just look at each other across the coffee table, covered with 20 years of undelivered love letters. Then Daniel takes a step forward, then another, then another. Miguel meets him halfway, and suddenly they're standing face to face, father and son, separated by inches instead of countries and decades. Miguel can smell Daniel's aftershave, can see the scar above his left eyebrow that he got from some childhood accident Miguel never learned about. Daniel is real and solid and alive and here. "Can I hug my son?" Miguel asks, his voice barely a whisper. Daniel doesn't answer with words. He just steps forward and wraps his arms around his father for the first time in 20 years. Miguel feels Daniel's shoulders shake with sobs he's been holding back since he was 8 years old. Miguel holds him tighter, trying to squeeze 20 years of missed hugs into this one perfect moment. They stand there in Daniel's living room, crying and holding each other as the Denver morning comes alive outside the windows. Father and son, lost and found, broken and healing. The hug lasts forever and not nearly long enough, like all the most important moments in life. When they finally separate, both men are smiling through their tears. There's still work to do, conversations to have, trust to rebuild. But they're no longer strangers connected only by biology. They're father and son again, ready to write a new story together. "Will you stay for breakfast?" Daniel asks. "Sarah gets home from her business trip tonight, and I'd like her to meet my father." Miguel nods, unable to speak past the gratitude flooding his chest. As Daniel moves toward the kitchen, Miguel picks up one of the letters from the coffee table. It's the one he wrote for Daniel's 18th birthday, full of advice for becoming a man and promises about the father he would try to be if he ever got another chance. He sets the letter down and follows his son into the kitchen, where Daniel is already pulling eggs and bread from the refrigerator. Some conversations happen with words, others with actions. Some promises are made with speeches, others with the simple act of sharing a meal. As Miguel watches Daniel crack eggs into a bowl with the same concentrated expression he had as a child, he realizes that love doesn't have an expiration date. It doesn't fade with distance or diminish with time. It just waits, patient and persistent, for the moment when it can finally come home. The 20-year separation is over. The second chapter of their father-son story is just beginning. And for the first time in 2 decades, Miguel Rodriguez believes in happy endings again. Sometimes the longest journeys end with the shortest steps. Sometimes the most important words are the ones we never say out loud. And sometimes, when we've given up hope of ever finding what we've lost, love finds a way to bring us home. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Top Life Stories for more incredible tales of human resilience, family bonds, and the power of never giving up on love. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to join our community of people who believe in second chances and the healing power of hope.